So I have a Wilton Ghost cutter here, and I'm going to take some of my flood and spread it along the head or the face area here. Now I want to use my flood because it's easy to spread, and sometimes when you use your outline icing it's a little bit too thick and doesn't cover the area. Now I'm going to go ahead and outline my ghost. So here I'm just going slow. Whenever I have a curve, I want to lift my bag up nicely so the icing falls, and when I have a really tiny curve like his little tail here, I want to get nice and close to the cookie. So wherever there's really kind of sharp turns, I want to stay closer to the cookie. That gives me more control over where my line falls. And when there's big long curves like the bottom of his body, there I can lift my bag up a little bit more. On those small curves you want to stay close because you want that icing to attach to the cookie. So when I'm staying close and pressing on my bag, it's pushing the icing towards the cookie, and that kind of push helps it to stick. Whereas if I'm really high above the cookie, I'm kind of just laying that icing line on top. And so sometimes when you need to move the icing in a certain way, in a very short kind of narrow curve, it won't stick properly. So you kind of move the bag as you go and you get the flow. And as you do more cookies, you'll kind of realize that. So again, with the eyes here, you see I'm really close to the cookie. I need full control to get those circles because they're really small. I'm almost touching my cookie there. So now I'm going to flood around his face, and then I'm just going to fix it up with my scribe. The reason I'm doing this before I flood the whole cookie is I just want to make sure I get all those areas in before I continue to flood. Sometimes if you take a little bit longer to flood, it might start crusting over, or it might be hard to kind of fill in. So I wanted to just make sure I got that area nice and good first, and then we can move on. Keep in mind when you're making faces like this, always make it a little bit bigger than you want the face to look. So his eyes and his mouth, when I drew them with my icing, with my outline consistency, before I flooded, they looked quite large. But all of a sudden when you fill it with flood, they tend to look a lot smaller. So just keeping that in mind if you're doing very detailed, kind of smaller work, always go just a little bit bigger. So I'm going to let this crust over for a little while. So it takes about 20 to 30 minutes if you have a dehydrator or even a fan to blow on it. Otherwise it might take you about 45 minutes, an hour to get a nice crust on there. A little bit of my icing has seeped over the edge, so I'm just going to clean it up with my scribe. So I just kind of run it parallel there. And then I'm going to take my black outline consistency and just draw a line from one side to the other. So just touch down, lift my bag up, and come down to the other side of his hand. And then with my outline purple, so this is my thicker consistency, I'm going to draw 3 flags. And then with the same consistency, I'm going to fill these in. This is a smaller area. I don't really need a flood. You can see it's still holding its shape a bit, but I'm going to go in there and wiggle it with my scribe. And because the area is not too big, I can smooth it out really easily. I'm starting with the middle one here because I want to make sure it's centered. So I don't want to start on the left or the right and then kind of have everything off centered. So if I start with the middle and then add the ones on the sides, it should look nice when it's all done. And again, just going right in there after I outline, going in with the same consistency. This is my outline or my detail consistency. And if you put enough in there, so I'm not just filling it just a little bit and doing a thin layer, I'm doing a nice big puffy layer of icing, and it makes it easier to smooth out with my scribe. Normally for bigger areas, I would outline, wait for the outline to dry a couple minutes, and then come back and flood. But because, we're using the same consistency here, I'm just going to go right in, and it's my thicker one, so I know it's going to hold its shape pretty well. And then once that crust's over, so that basically just means the top layer is dry, bottom layer inside, kind of that icing is still maybe wet, but we can go ahead and do our next layer. And so here again, I'm just going to write boo. So I'm keeping my bag really, really close, almost touching the purple icing here. I have full control and I'm going really slow. Hope you enjoyed the video. I have a lot more on my channel, a lot of tutorials and tips, so don't miss it. Make sure you subscribe and see you in the next one. Happy baking!